The House will be in order. The Chair lays before the House a communication from the Speaker.
The Speaker's Rooms, Washington, D.C., May 15th, 2023. I hereby appoint the Honorable Aaron Houchin to act as Speaker Pro Tempore on this day. Signed, Kevin McCarthy, Speaker of the House of Representatives.
Pursuant to the order of the House of January 9th, 2023, the Chair will now recognize members from lists submitted by the majority and minority leaders for morning hour debate. The Chair will alternate recognition between the parties with time equally allocated between the parties, and each member other than the majority and minority leaders and the minority whip limited to 5 minutes, but in no event shall debate continue beyond 1:50 p.m. The Chair recognizes the gentleman from Connecticut, Mr. Larson, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise today to address the body on what has become a new term of art in politics called a polycrisis. Polycrisis is when extraordinary events are taking place around the world, of which we are all too familiar with, including a global pandemic that has set off global supply chain issues, that has set off global inflation that impacts everybody around the globe, all of which have been compounded by the Ukraine war and all the disruption that that has caused. So in the midst of this polycrisis, who has been impacted the most in this country by both the pandemic and inflation? People impacted most by the pandemic are people over the age of 65, of roughly the more than 1.2 million Americans who have succumbed to the pandemic. Over 850,000, Madam Speaker, are over the age of 65. The people who are most impacted by inflation are people on fixed income, and they tend to be people over the age of 65 because they are the people on Social Security, which means that some 66+ million Americans are infected by both the pandemic and inflation. And Congress needs to act. What we need to do most of all is put the debt ceiling issue behind us. To play chicken with people's lives, with Social Security checks on the line, to default on the American dollar is criminal. These are probably unintended by the other side of the aisle, but nonetheless, the direct result of a gamble that makes no sense. And who's looking in during this polycrisis but our competitors around the world, most notably China and Russia, who would love to see the value of the dollar and the standing of the United States shaken. Oddly and ironically enough, not happening by any of these events abroad, but happening right here in this chamber by the failure of Congress to lift the debt ceiling, something that was done 3 times during the Trump administration. And yet, in the face of this pending crisis, with our seniors, the most vulnerable amongst us, facing excruciating circumstances, we continue to dither here. Put the debt ceiling on the floor, vote it, and lift it so that we can get on with sending relief to American people. Congress should be embarrassed by its negligence. It's been more than 52 years since Congress has enhanced benefits for Social Security. How can people go home and look their friends, their neighbors, their parents, their brothers and sisters in the eye and tell them that we've done nothing for 52 years? Do you think that things have changed since 1971? That prices might have gone up? Certainly they have. It's long overdue for Congress not simply to protect Social Security, but to enhance it. So during this polycrisis, during this epidemic, during this time of inflation, the most vulnerable amongst us, Social Security is the #1 anti-poverty program for the elderly. It's also the #1 anti-poverty program for children. It also happens to be the best economic development program for every single congressional district. An average of 145,000 people per congressional district depend on Social Security and receive those checks. And where do they spend that money? Right back in the district. The time to act is now. I yield back my time. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The chair recognizes the gentleman from Pennsylvania, Mr. Joyce, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, as we begin National Police Week, we recognize the brave men and women of law enforcement who serve and protect our communities every day. It was President Ronald Reagan who said, "Evil is powerless if the good are unafraid." From carrying out high-risk warrants to patrolling our neighborhoods to maintain order, we rely on police officers, our sheriffs, and our troopers to keep us safe. The bravery that they show in the face of evil, rushing toward an emergency, is what stands between lawlessness and order on our streets, and ultimately, safety in our homes. Sadly, we are so often reminded that there are those in this Congress who have looked to defund our law enforcement, actively working to strip them of the tools, the training, and the equipment that they need in order to allow us to remain safe. So far this year, 135 officers have been wounded by gunfire, 38 by ambush-style attacks, and 15 officers losing their lives in the line of duty, the ultimate sacrifice. While crime continues to rise in our cities, it's unconscionable that anyone would seek to take away the resources and support for those who have the courage to serve and protect us every day, every night. Matthew 5 says, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God." The officers across Pennsylvania embody this scripture. And this week, please join me in praying for the men and women who wear the badge. Join with me in praying for their safety. Let's recommit ourselves to standing with our law enforcement officers. Let's pledge to never defund the police. And in this Congress, let's promise to always back the men and women in blue. Thank you, and I yield.
The chair recognizes the gentleman from North Carolina, Mr. Nickel, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. North Carolina is a hub of innovation and diversity. People with roots from all over the world have come together to build a prosperous and growing community in our state. My district is stronger because of its diversity, and we need an immigration system that reflects North Carolina's needs and values. I believe that it's possible to have a fair and efficient immigration system while also protecting our national security and ensuring the safety of American citizens. That's why I was discouraged that with Title 42 set to expire, the majority chose to advance partisan legislation rather than bipartisan solutions that can pass the House, Senate, and get signed into law. Likewise, while the administration announced several short-term steps leading up to the expiration of Title 42, it was too little too late, and now Congress must act. It's unfortunate that addressing the situation at the southern border has become a political issue. Border security is not a Democrat issue, it's not a Republican issue, it's an American issue that we must address. I was proud to join a bipartisan coalition of members to introduce legislation that will secure the southern border while giving us more time to enact meaningful, long-term reforms to our overburdened immigration system. The legislation is the House companion to the one introduced by North Carolina's own Senator Thom Tillis and Arizona Senator Kristen Sinema. I'm proud to join this effort with Congressman Golden, Cisco Manny, Don Davis from North Carolina, Fitzpatrick, Valadao, and Nunn. This legislation grants the Biden administration a 2-year temporary expulsion authority for migrants who enter the U.S. illegally and serves as a proactive measure to tackle the expected surge of migrants at the southern border. Importantly, this legislation also ensures that migrants facing persecution or torture due to their membership in social, political, or religious groups will not be subject to expulsion. Furthermore, border agents will have the discretion to exempt migrants on a case-by-case basis. The urgency of decisive action at our southern border cannot be overstated, and this legislation will help in both the short term and the long term. In the short term, it would effectively extend Title 42 restrictions. It would equip the U.S. Customs and Border Protection with the tools and resources to secure our borders and keep Americans safe. In the long term, this legislation grants more time for Congress to take up and address our overburdened immigration system. Right now, there is strong bipartisan support for this, and we can work together to find common sense solutions that can pass into law. I believe in strong border security and improving technology at our ports of entry. I also believe people who wish to come to our country seeking a better life deserve a pathway to visas or citizenship that doesn't take decades to complete. North Carolina's economy relies on immigrants here on skilled work visas, and I'll work to find solutions to address the visa backlog and expand processing. We should address the root causes of migration with a comprehensive approach that includes not only immigration policy, but also economic development, humanitarian aid, and diplomatic engagement. As a member of the Problem Solvers Caucus and a member of the New Democrat Coalition's Immigration and Border Security Task Force, I remain focused and committed to working across the aisle to secure our border and advance comprehensive immigration reform. A solution to our broken immigration system is long overdue, Madam Speaker. Let's work together to secure our borders and ports, create a pathway to legal status for undocumented immigrants already in the country, and reform our visa system so that we can strengthen economic development. Thank you, and I yield back the balance of my time.
The chair recognizes the gentlewoman from Iowa, Ms. Miller Meeks, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise today to discuss the importance of prioritizing ethanol as we move toward a cleaner, more renewable energy future. Today, I'm introducing the Fuels Parity Act, legislation that would allow ethanol from cornstarch to qualify as an advanced biofuel. Removing legal barriers that limit the use of corn-based ethanol will bolster American energy production and support our agricultural industry, all while lowering emissions. The Biden administration continues to tout its focus on its clean energy, yet routinely leaves ethanol and other biofuels out of the equation. Transitioning to 100% electric vehicles is simply not feasible at this point in time. Our energy demands as a nation are increasing every single day, and our grid cannot support this transition. Instead of naively pushing for a change without considering the potential side effects, the Biden administration should be promoting all kinds of renewable energy, whether wind and solar to support our power grid or advanced biofuels to reduce carbon emissions without forcing the purchase of expensive EVs or not having the grid to support it. My bill is proof that Republicans and Democrats from all different regions are supportive of a cleaner energy future. I'm proud to be joined by Representatives Bice, Hunt, Sorensen, and Budzinski, and I look forward to continuing our efforts to prioritize American energy production. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise today to recognize National Police Week. Our officers do their job because they're committed to serving and protecting their communities. It's a selfless profession filled with brave men and women who put their lives on the line to protect others and keep order in society. They deserve recognition of their tireless efforts, yet are oftentimes met with hatred. Maintaining public safety is the key to thriving communities and our nation as a whole. In the last few years, our officers have been constantly attacked and defunded in many major American cities. Progressive district attorneys are contributing to the problem by refusing to prosecute crime, leaving criminals on the street who are highly likely to reoffend. We've all heard stories far too often about serious crimes committed by people who have been arrested countless times before being let back out onto the streets. Unfortunately, this has become the norm in too many cities. Our law enforcement officers have been left with policies that leave them feeling powerless to do their job they selflessly dedicate their lives to. Whether on the border or in major cities, we need serious bipartisan police reform that holds bad officers accountable and dedicates resources to help good officers do their job. I'm grateful for the men and women in law enforcement and their commitment to keeping us safe. Thank you for all you do. Madam Speaker, I rise today to congratulate Thomas Gibson of Iowa City for winning a Congressional Bronze Medal. I had the pleasure of presenting the award to Thomas last week in front of his friends and family at Iowa City West High School. Thomas is an outstanding young man, deserving of the award given to him to recognize the dedication to service and achievement in our nation's youth. In order to earn a Congressional Bronze Medal, participants must set and achieve goals in public service, personal development, physical fitness, and exploration. Thomas fulfilled his goals by restoring a native prairie to its original beauty, volunteering at a community garden that gave all of its food to people in need, and becoming a senior patrol leader for his Boy Scout troop, serving as a role model for younger scouts and learning valuable lessons in leadership. Thomas is also a member of Iowa City West High's most advanced jazz band and spends his free time working at a local ice cream shop. His peers speak very highly of him and recognize him as a valuable member of the community. I wish Thomas the very best of luck as he continues to be a leader and role model in the community. He represents the very best of Iowa and the rest of the country. Madam Speaker, I rise today to congratulate Haley Witters of Shoeyville, Iowa, for being named the Academy of Country Music Awards New Female Artist of the Year. Haley had a farm town upbringing before moving to Nashville to pursue a career in music. She spent the next 10 years honing her craft and finding her true voice before her breakout album, The Dream, caught national attention, and the Washington Post called it 2020's deepest country album. Haley's next album, titled Raised, drew inspiration from her upbringing in Iowa and focused on her childhood adventures in Shoeyville. This album introduced the world to her own unique brand of Iowa country music. Her song, A Beautiful Noise, was a 2022 Grammy nominee for Song of the Year, and she solidified her spot in the country music scene with her Academy of Country Music Awards New Female Artist of the Year title earlier this month. Haley, your success is a testament to your hard work and dedication to your craft. I wish you the best of luck as you go on to tour and showcase the new album. I know you'll continue to make the people of Shoeyville and Iowa proud. Madam Speaker, I rise today to recognize Back Pocket Brewing Company from Coralville, Iowa, for winning first prize for their pumpkin ale at the 2023 World Beer Cup. They have set the bar for excellent beers worldwide. They already have a gold coin, now they've got a gold medal. When I first put together my draft remarks, I knew any praise heaped on Back Pocket would pale in comparison to their actual accomplishments. So I will let the beer speak for itself. I would also encourage all breweries who won a silver or an amber,
the gentlelady
do not
is no
be
longer
sour.
recognized.
You are stout competitors. Thank you.
The chair recognizes the gentleman from Guam, Mr. Moylan, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. While there are certainly many important issues to celebrate and recognize during the month of May, one that hits definitely home to me is that May is when our nation celebrates Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. I stand with honor and pride to celebrate my district, my community, and my home, the beautiful island of Guam. Guam, an island community, proudly displaying an American flag in the midst of the Pacific region. Guam is home to a diverse and vibrant community. We are a melting pot consisting of Chamorros, Filipino Americans, Asian Americans, Micronesians, and so many other beautiful ethnicities. In Guam, we embrace the spirit of Inafamalik, which is to make good, or in a larger scheme of things, to restore harmony or order. We are an island of respect, from taking care of our elders to ensuring our neighbors are okay. We are also a welcoming community, as service members assigned to Guam can proudly share their stories of being invited to village fiestas. This month, we honor and reflect on our island's unique history, culture, diversity, and contributions to our nation's history and development. We are an island of patriots and proud Americans, many who served in the U.S. Armed Forces during wars and conflicts. Our per capita basis, we have among the highest number of enlistments in the nation. Guam is also proud to be home to veterans, once again among the highest per capita. Proud veterans who hope to be provided the same care as their brothers and sisters receive on the mainland. Not to mention that the island remains one of the Pacific's most strategic assets, holding key military installations and also a vital component of the Indo-PACOM theater. As a Pacific Islander, I am proud to be continuing a tradition of holding a seat in these sacred halls of democracy where I can proudly stand and represent my community, a tradition which started with the late Congressman Antonio Wampat and continued through the works of the late Congressman and General Ben Blas, Congressman Robert Underwood, Congresswoman Madeline Berdallo, and my predecessor, Congressman Michael San Nicolas. Each did their job ensuring that Pacific Islanders were represented with honor and dignity. As we certainly have many discussions over this term to discuss the inequities of our community faces as American citizens, today I wanted to rejoice in the celebration that I represent Pacific Islanders who are proud, welcoming, and who always display the Hafaday spirit. I want to reflect on the hardworking Islanders who have contributed to the growth of Guam and our region from levels of commerce, education, farming, healthcare, public service, engineering, and so much more. Many of whom have relocated throughout the nation to become integral contributors of so many districts represented by many members of Congress. Asian America and Pacific Island Heritage Month reminds us of the immense contributions to the nation's history and culture while encouraging us to learn more about their extraordinary and diverse stories. Stories I look forward to sharing with many colleagues throughout this term. Happy Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I yield back.
Pursuant to Clause 12A of Rule 1, the Chair declares the House in recess until 2 p.m. today.
The House will be in order. The prayer will be offered by Chaplain Kibben.
Would you pray with me? Holy God, sanctify this day and the week ahead, that our work would serve to glorify you and our efforts would prove worthy of you. You, Lord, are all we have. The riches of wealth, the blessing of talent and opportunity, the allure of beauty, and the fortune of friends and family are nothing compared to the portion we have in you. You, Lord, are all we have, and you give us all we need. You supply us not just with life and breath, but with purpose and meaning as you send us forth to uphold truth and justice and to remain steadfast in mercy and compassion. You, Lord, are all we have. You give us all we need, and our future is in your hands. In the certainty of your protection may we find our courage. In the sureness of your presence may we find our strength. Then in the bounty of your grace may we find our worth as we live into your desires for us this day and this week. May our hearts be open to the lives you would have us lead, and our wills on the paths that you would lead us. In the power you grant us in your name, we pray. Amen.
The chair has examined the journal of the last day's proceeding and announces to the House the approval thereof. Pursuant to Clause 1 of Rule 1, the journal stands approved. For what purpose does the gentlewoman from California seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, pursuant to Clause 1, Rule 1, I demand a vote on agreeing to the Speaker's approval of the journal.
The question is on agreeing to the Speaker's approval of the journal. Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say no. The ayes have it, and the journal stands approved. For what purpose does the gentlewoman from California seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I object to the vote on the ground that a quorum is not present and make a point of order that a quorum is not present.
Pursuant to Clause 8 of Rule 20, further proceedings on this question are postponed. The Pledge of Allegiance will be led by the gentleman from South Carolina, Mr. Wilson.
Everyone, including our guests in the gallery, are invited to participate.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The chair will entertain requests for 1-minute speeches. For what purpose does the gentlewoman from Iowa seek recognition? Without objection, the gentlewoman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to recognize Back Pocket Brewing Company from Coralville, Iowa, for winning first place for their pumpkin ale at the 2023 World Beer Cup, drowning out their competition. They have set the bar for excellent brews worldwide. They already had a gold coin, and now they've got a gold medal. When I first put together my draft remarks, I knew any praise I heaped on Back Pocket would pale in comparison to their actual accomplishments. So I will let the beer speak for itself and say simply, congratulations. I would also encourage all the breweries who won silver or amber, don't be sour. You are stout competitors, but one thing is clear. We may not have much of a timber industry in Iowa, but we do have great lagers. I encourage all of my colleagues to hop on the bandwagon and try Iowa beer. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield back.
Thank you. For what purpose does the gentlewoman from Indiana rise?
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to address the House and to revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentlewoman from Indiana is recognized for 1 minute.
Ask Hoosiers in New Albany what Lifespan Resources is, and they'll tell you it's a key part of the community. Their organization works to support independence and quality of life for people across southern Indiana through their advocacy and client services. And they have great leaders like Laura Clark leading the charge. Happy 50 years of helping Hoosiers in Clark, Floyd, Harrison, and Scott counties live independently. That's 50 years of home-delivered meals, transportation assistance, and numerous in-home services. I'm sorry I missed the big celebration at IU Southeast in New Albany last week, but I'm proud of the work you do. On behalf of Hoosiers across our district, congratulations on 50 years, and thank you.
For what purpose does the gentleman from South Carolina rise? Without objection, the gentleman is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As long as drugs have been used, they've been abused, destroying families, and availability is skyrocketing due to the Biden failures at the southern border. It is shocking that nearly 140 million Americans have illicitly used drugs at some point in their life. Sadly, South Carolina has not escaped this scourge. In the last 2 years, South Carolina drug overdose deaths involving fentanyl have increased by more than 35%. Sadly, 1,500 deaths are recorded. The Republican majority is focused on the needs of families. In January, I co-sponsored the Stop Fentanyl Act. This important legislation is a deterrence for fentanyl-related offenses, which are aggravated by the Biden failure of the southern border, putting all families at risk. In conclusion, God bless our troops who successfully protected America for 20 years as the global war on terrorism continues, moving from the Afghanistan safe haven to America. Best wishes on International Day of Families, coordinated by IOF President Brian Brown.
For what purpose does the gentlewoman from California rise?
Mr. Speaker, I rise to address the House for 1 minute and to extend and advise my remarks.
Without objection, the gentlewoman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you. As we celebrate National Police Week, I rise to honor the brave men and women who put their lives on the line to keep our community safe across California's 40th Congressional District and their families. In Congress, I will always be a loud voice for our local law enforcement and am working to ensure that they have the resources they need to do their jobs and to keep us safe. We also honor those who have made the ultimate sacrifice in the line of duty. Unfortunately, we are again reminded of the tremendous sacrifice of our local law enforcement as we honor Riverside County Sheriff Deputy Brett Harris, who was killed in the line of duty on Saturday. I join in praying for his wife, mother, father, his twin sister, and brother. Thank you.
Pursuant to Clause 12A of Rule 1, the chair declares the House in recess, subject to the call of the chair.
The House will be in order. Pursuant to Clause 8 of Rule 20, the chair will postpone further proceedings today on motions to suspend the rules on which a recorded vote or the yeas and nays are ordered, or votes objected to under Clause 6 of Rule 20. The House will resume proceedings on postponed questions at a later time. For what purpose does the gentleman from Wisconsin seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I move that the House suspend the rules to pass H.R. 3089, the NDO Fairness Act.
Without objection, the clerk will report the title of the bill.
H.R. 3089, a bill to amend Title 18 United States Code to modify delayed notice requirements and for other purposes.
Pursuant to the rule, the gentleman from Wisconsin, Mr. Fitzgerald, and the gentlewoman from Texas, Ms. Jackson Lee, each will control 20 minutes. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Wisconsin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I ask unanimous consent that all members have 5 legislative days to revise and extend their remarks and to include extra materials on H.R. 3089 and the bill now under consideration.
Without objection.
And, Mr. Speaker, I yield myself as much time as I may consume.
The gentleman is recognized.
I rise in strong support of this legislation, my bill, H.R. 3089, the NDO Fairness Act. This bill makes much-needed changes to the way law enforcement obtains and utilizes non-disclosure orders, also known as secrecy orders. Before modern advancements in cloud computing, when a law enforcement officer wanted to search someone's office, they would be required to obtain a search warrant based on probable cause, as we're all well aware of. When the officer executed the search, they would notify the individual, who would then have an opportunity to challenge the search in court. However, the era of cloud computing has ushered in a new method of storing sensitive information, whereby as we know, individuals are replacing file cabinets with the digital file folders. To them, by surrendering this physical office in favor of a digital office, individuals are also surrendering their expectation of privacy. That's because a provision within the Electronic Communications Privacy Act allows law enforcement to access an individual's data by subpoenaing the third-party service provider, such as Microsoft, Google, Apple, rather than the individual. The law enforcement officer then imposes a secrecy order on the company, preventing them from notifying the individual of the search. The secrecy order is then often boilerplate in nature and without a time limit, leading to abuse and overuse. According to Microsoft, between January to June 2022, federal authorities requested U.S. citizen data for more than 5,500 accounts, on average of 15 requests per day. Over the same time period, Google received more than 21,000 subpoenas for nearly 50,000 accounts. Apple, whose public data is only available through calendar year 2021, received more than 6,600 requests between July and December of that year. In nearly all the cases, a secrecy order was imposed on the company to prevent the disclosure of the search. The NDO Fairness Act would stop this abuse, which has allowed the circumvention of the Fourth Amendment protections in favor of simple convenience. This legislation ends indefinite secrecy orders and instead requiring the court to certify that disclosing the search is likely to jeopardize an investigation or result in a destructive, oftentimes full elimination of evidence, or endanger the life of an individual. This legislation also imposes a 90-day limit on secrecy orders, with an extension available if and only if the need for secrecy is justified based on the facts and approval by a judge. Finally, this legislation gives the individual subject to search a chance to be heard, and a chance to request a copy of the information that was disclosed. Today's legislation, while not a major overhaul of ECPA, provides us with an opportunity to address the threat to our constitutional freedoms. These changes, I believe, will bring searches of the cloud more closely in line with the Fourth Amendment searches. I want to thank my colleagues from New York, the ranking member of the House Judiciary Committee, Mr. Nadler, for co-leading this bill, and I want to thank the chairman of the committee, Chairman Jordan, for his leadership on the issue. I urge swift passage of the bill and reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman reserves. The chair will receive a message.
Mr. Speaker, messages from the Senate.
Mr. Speaker,
Madam Secretary.
I have been directed by the Senate to inform the House that the Senate has agreed to Senate Joint Resolution 23, a resolution providing for congressional disapproval under Chapter 8, Title 5, United States Code of the rules submitted by the National Marine Fisheries Service relating to endangered and threatened wildlife and plants, regulation for listing endangered and threatened species and designated critical habitat, in which concurrence of the House is requested.
The gentlelady from Texas is recognized.
I thank the Speaker, as to use such time as I might consume.
The gentlelady is recognized.
Let me first of all indicate that today is the National Fraternal Order of Police 42nd Annual National Peace Officers Memorial Service, which I will make comments on throughout my discussion and debate of other bills. But it is important to note the hundreds and hundreds of police officers that are here to honor those who have fallen in the line of duty, and the many, many families who are here as well, mourning and receiving recognition today. At the same time, I want to render my sympathy and concern for Congressman Jerry Conley and two staff members that have been violently attacked in his congressional office in Virginia, and to indicate our prayers and best wishes in particular for these a particular staff person's speedy recovery. I know that we all are stunned, but also offer our concern to our colleague and wishing him safety along with those of his staff. I now rise, Mr. Speaker, to offer strong support for H.R. 3089, the Non-Disclosure Order Fairness Act, crucial bipartisan surveillance reform legislation that passed out of the Judiciary Committee last week on a voice vote. I thank Mr. Fitzgerald and I thank Mr. Nadler, the ranking member, for his leadership, working together with Mr. Fitzgerald, and of course all of us on the committee that saw the rightness and reason for this legislation. The NDO Fairness Act is a simple, straightforward bill that addresses a narrow problem by establishing essential guardrails for when the government seeks to assess someone's electronic communications without that person's knowledge. This legislation would insert balance into a system that for too long has been a free-for-all for government prosecutors. Let me be very clear. Nothing that we are doing is intending to undermine the fair prosecution of those who have done wrong, those who are criminal and otherwise, and who warrant the prosecution of the federal government. But it is, as we debated right after 9/11, it is an attempt to uphold the values of this nation. I remember the intense discussions we had on the Patriot Act, when the inclination was, after the heinous, devastating murder of 3,000 plus Americans on 9/11, that we needed to do everything to insist that no one had even an inch of freedom. I am glad that in the Judiciary Committee, of which I was a member at that time, we saw the rhyme and the reason, and we worked in a bipartisan way to establish a Patriot Act that could in fact fight terrorism, as it has done, but also protect the constitutional rights of Americans. I see this in this NDO Fairness Act today. Under current law, after the government obtains a court's permission to search the contents of a person's electronic communications, of which they would not know, prosecutors must then compel the email service provider to produce the relevant data. To avoid having the service provider turn around and tell its customer about the search, the government can also ask the court to grant a non-disclosure order, or NDO, colloquially referred to as secrecy or gag order. You're gagging the American citizen. There is no time limit for these orders. There's no standard to meet. Today, all the government needs to do is cite one of 5 potential adverse results without showing that it is necessary, and the court may grant the request. Prosecutors frequently seek these secrecy orders in cases where there is clearly sometimes no need, and in situations where the government alone benefits, and in many instances, there is no need. Unlike when a physical search order occurs and a person has the right to go to court to dispute the warrant, NDOs can keep the subject of the search in the dark until the court reverses the order. The NDO Fairness Act would do away with the rubber stamp process that governs gag order requests by ensuring that courts apply a strict scrutiny standard to government requests with a written determination explaining their reasoning. By time-limiting non-disclosure orders, raising the standard of review, and ensuring that service providers have standing when they object, H.R. 3089 inserts transparency, reason, and balance into a system and fairness and justice on both sides that far too long has been a free-for-all for government prosecutors simply by virtue of it being just too easy to overuse. In the 21st century, federal prosecutors no longer need to show up to your office. They just need to raid your virtual office. But unlike physical searches, they can search an email in secret. Our surveillance laws have not kept pace with rapidly changing technology. And, Mr. Speaker, just wait on the march of AI. And so I think this bill is extremely timely because we have to be engaged with our constitutional values no matter what the level of technology is. It is imperative that the House of Representatives act to ensure that Americans are still protected as everyday life moves increasingly online. I thank Congressman Fitzgerald for introducing this bill and Ranking Member Nadler again for his leadership on this issue. I also want to thank Chairman Jordan for moving this bill swiftly through the Judiciary Committee and Senator Lee for his leadership in the Senate. And I was glad to serve as a ranking member of the subcommittee and dealing with this bill as well. So I encourage my colleagues to vote yes and to pass this important legislation today, and I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentlelady from Texas reserves. The gentleman from Wisconsin is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, we also would reserve unless there are any final comments, and we have no other speakers today, so we are prepared to close whenever.
Gentleman reserves. The gentlelady from Texas is recognized.
The gentleman is prepared to close. I'm prepared to close at this time. Thank you. Let me cite an example, Mr. Speaker, that I think is worthy of my colleagues' hearing. Between 2016 and 2021, Microsoft received between 7 and 10 NDOs every day. That's on average somewhere from 2,400 to 3,500 secrecy orders a year. Apple has received roughly 13,200 requests with secrecy orders from federal agencies over the past 5 years, which is approximately 2,600 requests annually, or the equivalent of 7 to 8 requests per day that are accompanied by a gag order. Just think of how many Americans that impacts. And they're not the only service providers to feel the legal burden. Google is under about 130,000 secrecy orders right now. Meta averages more than 100,000 requests per year. For example, in the first half of 2021, 70% of the 63,657 search requests Meta received included gag orders. That's an enormous tally. That is a lot of Americans. And I want to be very clear as I conclude my remarks. This is in no way attempted to thwart the important prosecution of individuals who are intending to do harm in any way to the United States by way of criminal acts. Certainly we believe in justice in any person who is accused. They have a right to due process, a trial by their peers and otherwise. But we do believe that it is important to protect the vast number of Americans who would not know what is happening to their online searches or their online privacy. And so, Mr. Speaker, the NDO Fairness Act would insert process and deliberation into gag order requests and make it more likely that Americans whose electronic communications are searched can assert their rights in court. This is good bipartisan legislation, and I urge all of my members to support it, and I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentlelady from Texas yields. The gentleman from Wisconsin is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I just want to reiterate my strong support for this bipartisan bill, H.R. 3089, which will provide much-needed safeguards on the secrecy order process. I would hope that all my colleagues would support it, and I urge its passage and yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman from Wisconsin yields. The question is, will the House suspend the rules and pass the bill, H.R. 3089? Those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. In the opinion of the chair, 2/3 being in the affirmative, the rules are suspended.
Mr. Speaker.
The bill is passed. For what purpose does the gentleman from...
I would request the yeas and nays on the bill.
The yeas and nays are requested. All those in favor of taking this vote by the yeas and nays will rise and remain standing until counted. A sufficient number having risen, the yeas and nays are ordered. Pursuant to Clause 8 of Rule 20, further proceedings on this question will be postponed. For what purpose does the gentleman from Wisconsin seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I move that the House suspend the rules to pass House Resolution 363, a resolution memorializing law enforcement officers killed in the line of duty.
The clerk will report the title of the resolution. Does the gentleman request to call up HRES 363 as amended?
I do.
The clerk will report the title of the resolution.
House Calendar Number 17, House Resolution 363, resolution expressing support for recognizing the National Police Week.
Pursuant to the rule, the gentleman from Wisconsin, Mr. Fitzgerald, and the gentlewoman from Texas, Ms. Jackson Lee, each will control 20 minutes. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Wisconsin.
Mr. Speaker, again, I ask unanimous consent that all members have 5 legislative days to revise and extend their remarks and to include extraneous material on House Resolution 363 amended, the bill now under consideration.
Without objection.
And I yield myself as much time as I may consume.
The gentleman from Wisconsin is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, this week we celebrate National Police Week. In doing so, we honor those officers who were killed in the line of duty. The measure before us, House Resolution 363, recognizes the countless law enforcement officers who serve their communities with valor, dignity, and integrity. It also explains the history behind Peace Officers Memorial Day and the National Police Week. It also lists the 556 law enforcement officers killed in the line of duty or whose stories were recovered during 2022. I wanted to take this opportunity to individually memorialize the Wisconsin police officers killed in the line of duty in 2023. Officer Pete Jerving, age 37 of Milwaukee Police Department, died in the line of duty on February 7th. Officer Emily Breidenbach, age 32, of the Cheddick Police Department, who died in the line of duty on April 9th. Officer Hunter Scheel, age 23, of the Cameron Police Department, who died in the line of duty on April 9th. And Deputy Katie Lensing, age 29, of the St. Croix County Sheriff's Office, who died in the line of duty just on May 7th. These 4 brave individuals and the 556 who went before them in 2022 represent the best of Wisconsin and this country, and we are grateful for their service and their heroic effort in a time of crisis. National Police Week is a solemn reminder of the actions our law enforcement officers take each day to keep our communities safe. I myself am the proud son of a law enforcement officer, as well as the proud father to a former law enforcement officer. I've seen their sacrifice firsthand, the long hours, the nights away from family, and the missed holidays. They do it over and over again without complaint because it's the job, and it's because it keeps our communities safe. In recent years, we've seen an increase in the number of ambush-style and targeted attacks on law enforcement officers. These senseless acts of violence are reprehensible, and they must stop. Today, I hope that the House speaks with one voice in support of law enforcement. To the families of the officers who had fallen, I want to thank the gentleman from Mississippi, Mr. Guest, for introducing this important resolution, which I'm a proud co-sponsor of. I would urge my colleagues to swiftly pass this resolution to honor our fallen law enforcement officers and celebrate those still wearing the uniform, and I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman from Wisconsin reserves. The gentlelady from Texas is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I ask to address the House for such time as I may consume.
Without objection. Recognized.
As I said earlier today, and I will say again, there are thousands of police officers and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of families who are here for the National Fraternal Order of Police 42nd Annual National Peace Officers Memorial Service. And there are families that obviously are in pain today. This legislation is appropriately debated today to be able to express and support our support for recognizing National Police Week. In this little book are state after state of the persons who have fallen in duty. In visiting and participating in the ceremony just a few hours ago, we met families of those who had fallen in the line of duty. Those officers who died of COVID, who were on the front lines of protecting our community, and the wife of Sean Rios, who in Houston Police Department, lost his life. many others who we could not personally meet or engage with, but the Houston Police Department, Harris County Sheriff's Department, and as well, even members of other departments from Atlanta to Los Angeles. They were there. Proud to say that Houston's honor guard was there as well. So I rise in support of HRES 363, expressing support for recognizing National Police Week. Today, there are more than 800,000 sworn law enforcement officers serving in the United States each day. In every corner of this country, these brave men and women risk their lives to keep the peace and keep us safe. From responding to 9/11 calls, to investigating wrongdoing, to securing our public spaces, to being a friend to a lost 3-year-old, we call on our law enforcement officers to help us in times of need. During Police Week, we recognize the sacrifices that officers make in serving their communities, and we thank them for their service. I am glad that the expression of support is neither Democratic or Republican. It is as we stand here today as Americans. On this day, Peace Officers Memorial Day, and every day, we especially recognize the brave men and women who have perished in the line of duty. And each year, the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial must bear the names of more fallen heroes who have given their last full measure of devotion to the communities they swore to protect and serve. This year, that number is 556, and this includes men and women, and increasingly, women are joining the many law enforcement agencies local across America. There are even women police chiefs and heads of police organizations. We applaud that reach and that welcoming and that diversity of law enforcement officers. It makes the community better. HRES 363 honors those who have lost their lives in service for their communities. This resolution includes my amendment, which clarifies that of the 556 enforcement officers honored at Peace Officers Memorial Day this year, 224 were killed in line of duty in 2022, and 332 were killed in previous years, but their stories had been lost until now. While every officer named in this resolution deserves our respect and their families are owed both gratitude and sympathies, it is important to make clear that we have not allowed more than 500 officers to die on our watch for a second consecutive year. The country is still reeling from the loss of 586 officers who died in the line of duty almost entirely because of COVID-19 in 2021. They never stopped, they never went home, they were in the line of duty and they died. It is important to make that note so their story is not lost. Although America's law enforcement officers continue to battle the effects of the pandemic, there's been a significant reduction in such deaths due in part to reduced infection rates and the widespread availability and use of vaccinations. So last year, of the 224 officers killed in line of duty, 70 officers died after contracting the disease while carrying out their official duties. That is down from 405 officers in 2021, a decrease of 83%, for which we should be forever grateful and thankful, despite COVID-19 remaining the #1 cause of law enforcement death in 2022. It is important to acknowledge every line of duty death. I met a family, a mother, whose son, after 37 years on the force, had died of COVID. That is why I'm glad we have come to know of the sacrifices made by the remaining 332 officers, some who gave their lives as far back as 1857. Their courageous stories have finally been brought to light. And just as the resolution notes, law enforcement officers across the United States serve with valor, dignity, and integrity. And we must do the same, ensuring that we maintain the public trust in the integrity of this body by legislating with specificity and transparency. Let each officer be honored in their loss, in our loss of them. It is equally important to fully and accurately understand that the challenges that law enforcement officers are facing, so that we make sure officers have the equipment, training, resources, and support they need to remain healthy and safe while they endeavor to keep us safe, as this resolution also recognizes. And the law enforcement trust and integrity legislation that I introduced that deals with equipment and training for law enforcement agencies as small as one to the major cities. If we truly care about the well-being of America's law enforcement officer, we must also work to end gun violence, particularly by keeping guns out of the hands of the wrong people where they endanger officers and communities they serve. I think it is important, Mr. Speaker, to take note that unfortunately today in New Mexico, 3 civilians are dead, 2 cops injured in New Mexico shooting. The suspect opened fire in Farmington, New Mexico, several injured and 3 dead civilians. Officers shot and killed the gunman. 2 officers were wounded, and they've been taken to a local hospital, and they are hopefully listed in stable condition and hopefully will survive and recover. It's so very important that we realize that there's more that we can do in honoring these officers. Tragic, another shooting. We should also continue to hear from law enforcement about the other dangers they face and work to improve their ability to respond to new challenges while also identifying opportunities to simultaneously promote the safety of law enforcement officers and improve public safety. Though we do not have legislation before us today that addresses the needs of all law enforcement, I will continue to support bills that provide for the equipment, training, resources, how to interact through community police relationships to strengthen ties between law enforcement and communities they serve, provide them with the intervention of bringing down gun violence in our communities and all kinds of violence, and particularly give them the tools to help with mental health crises so that they're not the only ones that are called when a family has a mental health crisis. I commend Representative Guest and the bipartisan coalition of members, including Ranking Member Loughran, Chairman Issa, for introducing this legislation. I encourage my colleagues on both sides of the aisle to support it, and I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentlelady from Texas reserves. The gentleman from Wisconsin is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, at this time, I would yield 5 minutes to the sponsor of the resolution, the gentleman from Mississippi, Mr. Guest.
Gentleman is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Scripture tells us, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called children of God." Our peacemakers make up the thin blue line that protects our communities from crime, and they dedicate their lives to defending innocent citizens from those who seek to do harm. It is of the utmost importance that we honor the men and women of law enforcement and those who made the ultimate sacrifice in this noble pursuit. Former President Ronald Reagan once said, "There can be no more noble vocation than the protection of one's fellow citizens." No group is more fully committed to the well-being of their fellow Americans and to the faithful discharge of duty than our law enforcement personnel. Law enforcement lives by a creed to serve and protect. In the performance of their duties, danger is a routine part of their jobs, and we on occasion lose valiant men and women. This legislation recognizes by name the 556 officers, 224 who were killed in the line of duty in 2022, and 332 others whose stories were lost until now. Within this list are 9 brave Mississippians who lost their lives in service to their communities, including Meridian police officer Kenneth Winston Croom, who was killed in the line of duty in June of last year while responding to a domestic violence call. Officer Croom and the 555 other officers are brave heroes who laid down their lives to protect those they served. Therefore, I urge my colleagues to support this important legislation that would acknowledge that police officers and law enforcement personnel, especially those that have made the ultimate sacrifice, should be remembered and honored. It expresses unwavering support for law enforcement officers, recognizes the law enforcement community for their continual unseen acts of sacrifice and heroism. It expresses condolences to the loved ones of each of the officers who made the ultimate sacrifice to their fellow man and gave their lives in the line of duty. May God bless our peacemakers and we ask His protection on them as they protect us. Thank you, and I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. The gentleman from Wisconsin is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We would reserve, and I would inform the Speaker that we have no further speakers and would yield to the gentlelady from Texas.
The gentleman from Wisconsin reserves. The gentlelady from Texas is recognized.
I'm prepared to close. Thank you. Speaker, we will, and I will recognize to use such time as I may consume. We will see many of our local police officials and officers this week, and I want to acknowledge that the week of May 1st through May 5th, the City of Houston and the Houston Police Department had our own annual Police Week. And so I want to acknowledge publicly our great concern as a community in honoring police. And we had, of course, the Police Week Award ceremony that we held on May 2nd. We had a day of prayer that was held on May 3rd in front of a police corporate headquarters, where our Houston area clergy came together to reinforce the partnership between community and the police. And then we had the annual Police Week Memorial Service that was held on May 5th, and was held at a very important memorial in our city where candlelight and the placing of the wreath occurred, as well as the roll call and taps. We're excited that the HPD Honor Guard will participate this week in the National Police Officer Week ceremony. I ask unanimous consent to place this into the record.
Without objection.
And then I want to acknowledge the words of our chief, Chief Troy Finner. We honor the heroes and heal their families' heart. Chief Troy Finner, HPD commanders and officers join thousands tonight to honor the memory of HPD Sergeant Sean Rios, one of 556 recent fallen officers at the Candlelight Vigil in Washington, D.C. And then to recognize from the Sheriff's Department, honoring from Major Susan Cotter, honoring those who paid the ultimate sacrifice for the Candlelight Vigil, and to honor those families, including Sergeant Gutierrez, Deputies Almendarez and Howard, gone but not forgotten. I honor those words, and I honor those leaders coming from my local community. Whether they are state, local, tribal, or federal agents, or officers of any of those agencies, we are grateful for the service of all law enforcement. We thank them and their families, and many families, children, were there today at this memorial on the grounds of the United States Capitol. I also wish to thank the many law enforcement officers who serve in my district, working to keep Texans safe. I was proud to see the Houston Police Department, Harris County Sheriff's Office participate in this year's observances here in Washington, D.C. And to the Capitol Police, who protect the people, members of Congress, our staff, and the work we do, thank you for protecting our democracy. I'm proud to support and recognize law enforcement officers for the tremendous work they do each day, and to uplift in special reverence the names of all of those men and women who made the ultimate sacrifice for us and the nation included. May I offer these names to be held in high esteem and reverence who have passed away. Charles Udell Galloway, Harris County, Constable's Office, and he died on 1/23/22. Jennifer Lauren Chavis, Constable's Office, who died on April 2nd, 2022. Darren Almendarez, who died on March 31st, 2022. And Ramon Gutierrez, who died on 1/24/2022. Harris County Sheriffs, Robert Adam Howard, who passed away in the recent years. Ramon Gutierrez and Darren Almendarez, I mentioned, and of course, Sean Sebastian Rios from the Houston Police Department, who died on November 9th, 2020. In their names and those who have passed over the years, I support passage of this resolution without question and hope my colleagues will do the same. On this moment, we are not different, we are the same, and we mourn for those who have fallen, pray for those officers in the hospital in New Mexico, and ask that we can bring the reason of protecting the American people, and we can do it together. With that, I yield back.
The gentlelady from Texas yields back. The gentleman from Wisconsin is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I just want to once again reiterate my strong support for this bipartisan resolution celebrating National Police Week and law enforcement officers. I urge its passage, and I yield the balance of my time.
The gentleman from Wisconsin yields back. The question is, will the House suspend the rules and agree to House Resolution 363 as amended? Those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. In the opinion of the chair,
I would ask for the yeas and nays on this vote as well.
2/3 being in the affirmative. For what purpose does the gentleman from Wisconsin seek recognition?
I would ask for the yeas and nays, Mr. Speaker.
The yeas and nays are requested. All those in favor of taking this vote by the yeas and nays will rise and remain standing until counted. A sufficient number having risen, the yeas and nays are ordered. Pursuant to Clause 8 of Rule 20, further proceedings on this question will be postponed. Pursuant to Clause 12A of Rule 1, the Chair declares the House in recess until approximately 6:30 p.m. today.
The House will be in order. Proceedings will resume on questions previously postponed. Votes will be taken in the following order. Motions to suspend the rules with respect to H.R. 3089 and House Resolution 363, and agreeing to the Speaker's approval of the journal if ordered. The first electronic vote will be conducted as a 15-minute vote. Pursuant to Clause 9 of Rule 20, remaining electronic votes will be conducted as 5-minute votes. Pursuant to Clause 8 of Rule 20, the unfinished business is the vote of the motion on the gentleman from Wisconsin, Mr. Fitzgerald, to suspend the rules and pass 3089, on which the yeas and nays have been ordered. The clerk will report the title.
H.R. 3089, a bill to amend Title 18 United States Code to modify delayed notice requirements and for the purposes.
The question is, will the House suspend the rules and pass the bill? Members will record their votes by electronic vote. This is a 15-minute vote.
into this afterwards.
Okay. On this vote, the yeas are 412, the nays are 0. 0 recorded as present. 2/3 being in the affirmative, the rules are suspended, the bill is passed, and without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table. Pursuant to Clause 8 of Rule 20, the unfinished business is the vote on the motion of the gentleman from Wisconsin, Mr. Fitzgerald, to suspend the rules and agree to House Resolution 363 as amended, on which the yeas and nays are ordered. The clerk will report the title.
House Calendar Number 17, House Resolution 363, resolution expressing support for recognizing National Police Week.
The question is, will the House suspend the rules and agree to the resolution as amended? Members will record their votes by electronic device. This is a 5-minute vote.
The yeas are 413. The nays are 2, 2/3 being in the affirmative. The rules are suspended. The resolution is agreed to, and without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table. Without objection, the title is amended. Pursuant to Clause 8 of Rule 20, the unfinished business is the question on agreeing to the Speaker's approval of the journal, which the Chair will put de novo. The question is on agreeing to the Speaker's approval of the journal. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed say no. In the opinion of the Chair, the ayes have it, and the journal stands approved.
Don't hit this. Just kidding. The House will be in order. The House will be in order. Members, please take your conversations off the floor. The Chair will now entertain requests for 1-minute speeches. For what purpose does the gentleman from Pennsylvania seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, request unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute and revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise today to recognize Ken Starr of Clearfield, Pennsylvania, who was recently named as the Western Pennsylvania Veteran-Owned Small Business Person of the Year by the Small Business Administration. Ken Starr got his start as an entrepreneur in 2005, making wine from just 12 grapevines on his Allegheny Mountain property, aptly named Starr Hill. His winery, the 100th licensed winery in Pennsylvania, soon had over 3,000 grapevines, making up 40 varieties of wine. All his fruit and grapes are sourced from Pennsylvania farms and are now carried by major grocery and convenience stores across the state. Beyond wine, Ken Starr is known for his support for local charities, giving regularly to the Pennsylvania Wilds and the State National Guard Foundation, among many more. However, his lifetime of service began long ago when he completed a tour of duty in the United States Air Force. Now, at the age of 82, many have pointed out that, like fine wine, Ken Starr seems to be improving with age. I commend Ken Starr for being named the Veteran-Owned Small Business Person of the Year and for his many contributions to communities and grocery stores across Pennsylvania. Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I yield back the balance of my time.
The House will be in order. For what purpose does the gentlewoman from Ohio seek recognition?
To address the House for 1 minute and to revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentlewoman is recognized for 1 minute.
Madam Speaker, last week we celebrated both National Nurses Week and Mother's Day. Today I rise to highlight a Great Lakes story of perseverance that ties them both together. Shalisa and Michelle Davis, mother and daughter, are from Detroit, Michigan. This spring, they graduated together on the same day in Toledo, Ohio, both with nursing degrees. When a mother watches their daughter or son graduate from college, it is a larger-than-life moment. But to do it together is something unforgettable. You don't often get to follow so closely in your mother's footsteps. Michelle passed her boards and plans to continue schooling and hopes to become a family practitioner. Shalisa wants to open her own clinic to help communities with limited access to health care. Bravo. Congratulations to mother and daughter on their proud accomplishments, and bravo for embarking on a noble journey to help strengthen health care in our region. May all nurses in Ohio's 9th District and beyond prevail in their dedication to care for and heal the people of our nation. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I yield back.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Georgia seek recognition?
Ask unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute and to revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Madam Speaker, I rise today to celebrate the career and retirement of Reverend William Willoughby III of St. Paul's Episcopal Church in Savannah, Georgia. William has led the St. Paul's Episcopal Church since 1987. He is a graduate of the University of Chicago and received his master's in divinity from Nashotah House in Wisconsin. As well as being the Reverend at St. Paul's, Reverend Willoughby created the St. Paul's Development Corporation, which provides low-income housing to Savannah residents. The Reverend also serves as the district chaplain for the Coastal Empire Council of the Boy Scouts of America and as a commissioner with the Chatham County Department of Family and Children's Services. Although he is retiring from St. Paul's, I am happy to hear that he will continue serving the community and the Episcopal Church in his retirement. I hope you enjoy your African safari, Reverend Willoughby. It is certainly well-deserved. On behalf of the people of Savannah, thank you for your service to our community. Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I yield back.
For what purpose does the gentleman from North Carolina seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute to revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Madam Speaker, I rise to honor our brave men and women in law enforcement as we celebrate their service during National Police Week. This week, we must acknowledge the dedication and sacrifices of those who serve our communities by honoring the fallen heroes who have paid the ultimate price. Madam Speaker, rural America has many challenges, and policing is among them because of underinvestment. That's why I'm fighting to bring home nearly $3 million in support of the town of Ayden, Elizabeth City, Plymouth, and Greenville to ensure they have the resources they need to safeguard our communities. I'm also proud to co-sponsor the bipartisan Invest to Protect Act, which will provide critical investments to local police departments across eastern North Carolina to keep their officers and communities safe. Madam Speaker, I joined the 1st Congressional District in extending my deepest gratitude to the men and women who protect our neighborhoods, respond to emergencies, and ensure public safety. Thank you, and I yield back.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Mississippi seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, I ask consent for 1 minute speech.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Madam Speaker, I rise today in the honor of National Police Week. As a 42-year veteran of law enforcement and a former patrolman, detective, police chief, and sheriff, I know firsthand how much our law enforcement officers and their families sacrifice to protect our communities. At a time when law enforcement officers across the country have been vilified by far-left activists, it is more important than ever that we show them our honor and respect. Today is Peace Officers Memorial Day, and I want to take this time to honor 2 fallen heroes from South Mississippi, Bay St. Louis police officer Sergeant Steve Robin and Officer Brandon Estorff. Sergeant Robin and Officer Estorff were shot and killed in the line of duty this past December. Like so many other fallen officers, they leave behind grieving families and a community grappling with the consequences of senseless violence. As we honor both National Police Week and Peace Officers Memorial Day, our fallen officers, their loved ones, and their communities are in the thoughts and prayers of myself, this body, and the United States of America. May we always remember their selfless commitment, their service, and ultimately their sacrifice. With that, Madam Speaker, I yield back.
For what purpose does the gentlewoman from Virginia seek recognition?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise to request unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute and to extend and revise my remarks.
Without objection, the gentlewoman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise today to urge my House Republican colleagues to end their debt ceiling brinksmanship and prioritize the needs of the American people over their party's interests. An unprecedented debt default would jeopardize health benefits for over 315,000 people in my district who rely on Medicare, Medicaid, or Veterans Affairs health insurance, and raise the cost for all Americans by raising interest rates on every loan they have. Unfortunately, the Republican solution is no solution at all, as their Default on America Act would devastate American families, seniors, and especially our veterans. This bill would immediately rescind $2 billion in funding to support veterans, which would mean 30 million fewer outpatient visits and 81,000 jobs lost across Veterans Health Administration. This would exacerbate backlogs and wait times for the important medical appointments, particularly at facilities like the Richmond VA Medical Center in my district. Our brave veterans deserve better. These are not viable options, and I call on House Republicans to stop holding the American economy hostage and raise the debt ceiling cleanly, just as we did 3 times under the former president. Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I yield back.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Iowa seek recognition?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I ask unanimous consent for a 1-minute speech and consent to revise and return my remarks.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise today in recognition of a one-of-a-kind event being held in the heart of our nation's capital. Earlier today, I visited a celebration of construction on the National Mall. This event, hosted by the Association of Equipment Manufacturers and more than 40 manufacturers and trade groups, brings together larger-than-life machinery to the steps of the U.S. Capitol and enjoyed by both adult and many children alike. For 3 days, visitors to the National Mall will have the opportunity to see this equipment close up. This is a unique opportunity for policymakers to learn about the manufacturers from across the country, including some Iowa manufacturers like Vermeer, Siemens, Tech, and John Deere, who are creating American jobs and contributing billions annually to our economy. Iowa's 3rd District is home to more than 34,000 equipment manufacturers, more than any other district in the country. I applaud AEM for showcasing this on the National Mall, and I encourage my colleagues to take time and visit this exhibition. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I yield back.
For what purpose does the gentleman from New York seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute and to revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you. Madam Speaker, I rise today to recognize Aldelmo Camacho on the occasion of his 100th birthday. Aldelmo, commonly referred to as Al, was born in Puerto Rico on May 14th of 1923, the youngest of 10 children. In 1942, at age 19, he joined the Army, where he became a surgical technician. After he was discharged in 1945, Al finished school and later married his wife, Tina. The couple welcomed 2 daughters, Ida and Lillian. Shortly after the birth of his younger child, in 1950, Al moved to Amsterdam, New York, and was shortly joined by his wife and 2 daughters. Over these last 53 years, he has remained in Amsterdam, where he has helped establish and lead the Spanish-American Club, and where he can often be found playing dominoes, one of his favorite pastimes. Al, thank you for your friendship, your liveliness, and character, which have had such a great and positive impact on the city of Amsterdam. Feliz cumpleaños. Happy birthday, Al.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Ohio seek recognition?
Consent to revise for the House to rise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Today, I rise to honor my dear friend, David DeStefano. Since November 4th of 2021, he has been serving the people of Ohio's 15th Congressional District as our Chief of Staff. Roughly 36 hours after we won our special election on November 2nd of 2021, Dave and I walked into an empty room in the Rayburn Building with no phones, no computers, and no staff. In fact, Dave and I had to scramble to find out what we were actually being asked to vote on that evening. But in short order, Dave's leadership and tireless work, we were able to not only fill our staff positions, but we were able to fill them with arguably the best team on the Hill and in Ohio. While Dave officially left our office last Friday, you can rest assured that he won't be too far away. Dave and I have been friends and colleagues for over 30 years. From introducing me to my wife, Megan, as well as him being the godfather to my oldest son, Prescott. Dave is more like family. I wish Dave, his wife Karen, their son Vince, all the best as they embark on this new journey. And to my dear friend, I will end by saying the simplest but sometimes most unused phrase, even by me. Thank you. Madam Speaker, I yield back.
For what purpose does the gentlewoman from Minnesota seek recognition?
I rise to address the House for 1 minute and revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentlewoman is recognized for 1 minute.
Madam Speaker, today I rise to pay my respects to the celebrated heroes of the Somali Youth League. On May 15, 1943, 13 young, brave, and brightful men founded SYL to liberate Somalia from colonial control. Their mission was to see a free and united Somalia and prosperity for its people. 80 years later, we cannot forget their sacrifice and let their deaths be in vain. As Somalis in the diaspora, young or old or in Somalia, our call today has to be for unity, for freedom, and for leadership. SYL fought for liberty, and we must renew that call to liberate ourselves from clan mentality, violence, and lead to create a better tomorrow for all of us. And I yield, Madam Speaker.
For what purpose does the gentleman from California seek recognition?
Seeking to ask consent to address the House 1 minute and revise the remarks, Madam Speaker.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Well, today the Durham report finally came out. And as suspected, the FBI and the DOJ acted vastly improperly with raw, uncorroborated so-called evidence that they used to hound President Trump for well over 2 years and try to influence the 2016 election, as well as make the administration untenable following that. So who's going to go to jail for this? Hard to tell. It's pretty difficult to prosecute these sorts of things when the insiders at DOJ and FBI are going to be trying to make sure it doesn't happen. So what do we do to put at least the confidence of the American people back into the upper echelons of the Department of Justice and the FBI so that we don't have to think that they're going to be doing this sort of thing to anybody they disagree with politically on top of what we just saw? Indeed, how do we regain trust? Because it's been blown up in the name of influencing an election in 2016 and harming the Trump administration. I yield back.
For what purpose does the gentlewoman from Texas seek recognition?
I ask to address the House for 1 minute. Unanimous consent.
Without objection, the gentlewoman is recognized for 1 minute.
Today I managed on the floor of the House the legislation that would honor the fallen of our many, many police officers, some 800,000 across America. And I had the privilege of joining many, many families and police officers in the National Fraternal Order of Police 42nd Annual National Peace Officers Memorial Service, and to hear the names one after another of the many states of those who lost their lives. As I said earlier in debate, the Houston Police Department was present along with the Harris County Sheriff's Office, and we recognized those who had fallen in those two departments. It was a time when I even said to the families, never let them walk alone. I honor them. I just want to take a moment because I recognize the importance of children, and I'm asking the Department of Justice and Department of Education to help us stop the hostile state takeover of the Houston Independent School District. It is urgent and imperative that this district survives, and we need the federal government intervention now. I yield back.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Tennessee seek recognition?
I ask unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute and revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Madam Speaker, today I rise to recognize the 75th anniversary of the founding of Israel. On Sunday, May 14th, not only did we celebrate 75 years since the birth of Israel, but we also celebrated 75 years since the birth of a special friendship between the United States and Israel. For 75 years, there has been no better ally to the United States than Israel, and no better ally to Israel than the United States. There is no issue more bipartisan than that of continuing to strengthen the U.S.-Israel relationship. Because of this, I believe our relationship will continue to grow stronger over the next 75 years. Madam Speaker, I hope all members of this body join me in wishing a very happy birthday to Israel. May the next 75 years be a time of hope and prosperity. Thank you, and I yield back.
For what purpose does the gentleman from New Jersey seek recognition?
Ask unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute, revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Madam Speaker, I rise today to honor the life of gold medalist Tori Bowie. Bowie was born on August 27, 1990 in Sand Hill, Mississippi. Her extraordinary track and field talents were apparent very early. In high school, Bowie won 5 individual state titles in sprints and the long jump, as well as 3 state relay titles. At the University of Southern Mississippi, she was a 2-time NCAA Division I long jump champion before she switched to sprints full-time. At the 2016 Summer Olympics, Bowie's dedication to the sprints paid off. She won the silver medal in the 100-meter dash, a bronze medal in the 200-meter dash, and a gold medal as part of the U.S. women's 4x4 100 relay team. Her passing on May 2nd was an American tragedy. But thanks to her tremendous track and field success, Bowie will be remembered as one of the greatest athletes in American history. And I raise that to say that what a great career and very distinguished, but Miss Bowie committed suicide. And a young lady with all those accomplishments still found it necessary to take her life. Ladies and gentlemen, and Madam Speaker, we need to find out what is going on with our children in their lives that such an accomplished life would decide that it had to end by their own hands. And with that, I yield back.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Kentucky seek recognition?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I ask unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute to revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Madam Speaker, last week Louisville lost a legend. If you look up Coach Denny Crum or are a fan of college basketball, you know that's not hyperbole. 30 years leading the University of Louisville basketball team, 675 wins, 2 national championships, 6 Final Fours, and a stream of conference championships, All-Americans, NBA standouts, Hall of Fame, legend. But that's on the court. In a town where college basketball is king, Denny Crum was an absolute rock star. And after the 600,000th hand shaken, autograph signed, or picture snapped, Denny Crum was just as nice as if you were the first person he ever met. We were all Denny Crum's friend. Legend. But if you thought Denny was good to new people, you should see what the guys who knew him forever was. He was inclusive before it was cool, and guys going back 50 years still call him coach, mentor, friend, and everyone from Dr. Duncanstein to guys you've never heard of got the same treatment. They were all Denny's guys. Cardinals. Legend. On and off the court. Today, we all join Scott and Susan, a city in mourning, and a forever community grateful for Coach Denny Crum. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I yield back.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Wisconsin seek recognition?
We're just going to speak for 1 minute.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
In all the hubbub of the significant legislation and the debt limit the last week, I think this body let the founding of Earth Day pass. And of course, the father of Earth Day was none other than Wisconsin Senator Gaylord Nelson, and I'm sure all the Wisconsin little school children are taught that. Given that we're celebrating the 73rd anniversary of Earth Day, I think we should go back and look at what some of the founders of Earth Day said at that time. Gaylord Nelson said that within 25 years of the first Earth Day, which was 1970, 75 to 80% of the species of the Earth were extinct. Paul Ehrlich, biologist and author of the best-selling Population Bomb, predicted that 100 to 200 million people would be starving per year in the 1980s, and that 65 million Americans would die in the 1980s. George Wald, well-known Harvard biologist, predicted the civilization would end within 15 to 30 years unless action was taken quickly. And Barry Commoner, another windbag who was on television all the time in the 1970s, also predicted that all the oxygen would be used up in America's freshwater rivers. So the lesson is, go back and see what those founders of Earth Day said and see how little they really knew about the future held for us. Thank you.
Speaker's announced policy of January 9th, 2023. The gentleman from Illinois, Mr. Jackson, is recognized for 60 minutes as the designee of the minority leader.
CB Chair, what's that? Mr. Speaker, I unanimously consent that all members have 5 legislative days to revise and extend their remarks and include any extraneous materials on the subject of this special order.
Without objection.
For the next 60 minutes, we have a chance to speak directly to the American people on an issue of great importance to the Congressional Black Caucus, Congress, the constituents we represent, and all Americans. I rise today, Ms. Speaker, to underscore how a failure to lift the debt ceiling would impact low-income Black families' access to health care. On the other side of the aisle, my colleagues are attempting to rip health care coverage away from American peoples through burdensome Medicaid work requirements. Under McCarthy's proposed, more than 10 million people in Medicaid expansion state would be at significant risk of losing coverage, more than 1 to 5 enrollees. Medicaid is a crucial tool to promoting healthcare equality. It covers about 3 in 10 Black Americans, American Indian and Alaskan Natives, and Native Hawaiian or other Pacific Islanders, non-elderly adults. It's a major source of coverage for people of color and provides financial protection from skyrocketing healthcare costs. Despite what Republicans say, Medicaid work requirements are unnecessary. Most adults already on Medicaid are working. What work requirements do is create new barriers to accessing health care equality and quality health care. According to the Congressional Budget Office, mandatory work requirements would cause 2.2 million people to lose health care insurance in just 1 year. These health care cuts are extreme and have the potential to be catastrophic for vulnerable communities. Medicaid expansions have worked for Americans. Ever since the enactment of the Affordable Care Act, 16.8 million Americans have gained health care coverage because of Medicaid expansion. At least 19,000 lives have been saved as a result. Medicaid expansions have reduced devastating out-of-pocket medical costs that can be debilitating for many families, already struggling to make ends meet. The debt ceiling proposal that Speaker McCarthy has floated would put health care out of reach for many Americans and drive them further into poverty. Medicare enrollees cannot afford this game of partisan politics.
Their lives are quite literally depending on it. It is our time to act as a Congress and protect the American people and ensure that everyone has access to quality health care. At this moment, I would like to yield to my colleague, the Honorable Maxine Waters from California.
She's going to recognize me. Madam Chair, right now the United States economy is being held hostage by Speaker McCarthy and extreme MAGA Republicans who have issued a series of radical demands. In their demands, they're saying if they're not met, they have said that they will force the United States government into bankruptcy for the first time in our nation's history. Madam Speaker, this fate is exactly 16 days away. The clock is ticking, and instead of taking action to avoid this fate, Republicans are doubling down on their threats, while communities everywhere will suffer enormous harm. No community will bear the brunt of this looming economic catastrophe more than the Black community. A default on our nation's debt will discontinue crucial programs like Medicare, Social Security. In my district alone, a default will jeopardize Social Security payments for 59,000 families and threaten the retirement savings of 89,600 people near retirement. A default will dramatically increase borrowing costs for auto, home, and personal loans and hinder access to credit for Black communities who are already paying more for credit because of predatory lending practices, which still list today. For example, a default would increase mortgage interest rates above 8% and increase monthly mortgage payments on a medium home in California by $254, pushing the total cost of home ownership up by over $91,000. This would further decimate the American dream of home ownership for far too many families. And while we've made considerable progress in strengthening Black employment under President Biden, a default would significantly reverse this progress by throwing 780,000 people out of jobs, including 7,200 jobs in my district alone. And as with most economic crises, Black Americans will not only bear the brunt of a recession, but will also have the most difficult time recovering, and we've seen this in the past. Let's be very clear. The brinksmanship over our nation's debt is not only a direct attack on our economy, but also on Black communities everywhere. We're running out of time to save our economy and our most vulnerable communities from a crisis of epic proportions. So, I urge my Republican colleagues to put an end to this needless political theater and raise the debt limit as they did 3 times with no problems under twice impeached and indicted former President Donald Trump. Not only must they raise the debt limit, but in the midst of a worsening housing crisis, they must do so without cutting a single penny from the critical housing funds. Thank you, and I yield back the balance of my time.
Thank you, Representative. I would like to now, Madam Speaker, I'd like to pass it to my co-anchor, Representative Jonathan Jackson from Illinois.
Thank you, Congresswoman McCormick. I'd like to thank my esteemed colleague, Congresswoman Maxine Waters. I rise today in the chamber of this hallowed institution to raise my voice, echoing the deep concerns that reverberate from the hardworking, dedicated, and patriotic citizens of this great nation. Specifically, I stand before you to amplify the anxieties of Black Americans who for far too long have been subjected to the harshest winds of economic hardship. Today, we find ourselves on the precipice of a financial abyss, and I must underscore the severe impact that the failure to lift the debt ceiling would have on the lives and livelihoods of Black Americans and their families across this country.
Our nation stands on the brink of a financial crisis, our coffers threatening to run dry as soon as June 1st. The hard truth, my colleagues, is that we have already reached our debt limit of $31.4 trillion, yet we have not reached an agreement to raise the ceiling. This failure to act is not just a legislative oversight, it threatens the very fabric of our economy, our society, and most importantly, our people's lives. The debt ceiling, for those unfamiliar, is the total amount of federal government can borrow to meet existing obligations, ranging from Medicare, Social Security, and to loan repayments. And so if we fail to raise this debt limit, we risk default on our national loans, leading to a catastrophic fallout for our credit rating and potentially triggering a deep recession. The ripple effect of such a financial debacle would not only be felt within our borders, but would also potentially destabilize the global economy. Now, you may ask, why should Black Americans be particularly concerned? The answer lies in the cruel and persistent reality of our socioeconomic landscape. A deep recession does not impact all demographics equally. Black Americans are typically among the first to feel the brunt of economic downturns, often being laid off first and tragically the last to recover. A default would strike an even harsher blow to the backbone of Black communities, our elderly. As of 2017, 35% of elderly married Black couples and 58% of unmarried Black older adults depend on Social Security for 90% or more of their income. If the debt ceiling is not lifted and our default on our obligation, and the fallout would disproportionately harm the Black community and shred the already thin safety net many rely upon. The current crisis we face extends beyond Social Security, Medicare, and essential federal services. It reaches into the realm of higher education, ensnaring young Black Americans in the tightening grip of student loan debts. The bill that many of my colleagues across the aisle have brought to the fore would effectively dismantle President Biden's student loan debt relief, a plan that promises to lift the yoke of debt, those earning less than $125,000 annually, forgiving up to $10,000 in student loan debt, and even more for lower income borrowers. Many of the recipients that receive PPP funds now have become cruel in the face of students. The Republican government arguments that this plan misuses taxpayers' dollars to pardon the debts of some Americans is not just misguided, it is a grievous misrepresentation of the realities faced by our young citizens, particularly those of color. Black college graduates bear the brunt of this student debt crisis. Over 80% of Black bachelor's degree recipients are shackled with an average debt of over $34,000, according to the Institute for College Access and Success. Not only are they borrowing more, and they are also defaulting at higher rates because they are not able to go into higher paying jobs. These are not merely statistics, Ms. Speaker. These are the dreams of our young being crushed under the weight of financial obligations. In the shadow of this impending catastrophe, we ask, why has Congress not acted? It's the same answer that has plagued institutions for centuries: politics. While the Republican-controlled House has passed a bill to raise the debt limit, it's fraught with spending cuts and new work requirements for those receiving government benefits, making it an untenable solution. Over 85% of those persons that are receiving these benefits are now have an elderly person or a child or unable to find public or private transportation to meet these work requirements. We must think of the whole continuum in order to fix the problem and not the blame on the backs of the poor. During the presidency of Donald Trump, Congress raised the debt limit 3 times in 2017, 2018, 2019, with bipartisan support and no precondition on budget cuts. Since 1959, this debt ceiling has been raised 89 times. A financial crisis was averted because both sides across the aisles recognized the need to act swiftly and responsibly to protect the interests of the American people. Now, as we face a similar situation, the Biden-Harris administration has drawn a clear line in the sand. They have rightly insisted that fiscal budgets and the debt ceiling should be separate issues. Again, Fiscal budgets and the debt ceiling should be separate issues. The former is a debate about the future. The latter is a commitment to paying our bills for debts we've already incurred. Mixing these two distinct aspects would be akin to confusing our aspirations with our responsibilities. A default would wreak havoc on federal services that Black and brown communities disproportionately rely upon, such as food assistance and Social Security. It would cause the government to prioritize debt payments over the well-being of its citizens. It could cause the government further to lead to a potential default on these critical services. The impact of a default are largely unknown and could be far-reaching, potentially exacerbating existing racial disparities in healthcare, veteran services, and the labor market. A default would also have a chilling effect on the consumer's borrowing costs, with interest rates likely to skyrocket for home, auto, and personal loans. Furthermore, the increased credit risk of the federal government could significantly hinder credit access for communities of color who have already more than likely to have credit reports and credit worthiness according to the credit profiles and the history of redlining. Our nation is at a crossroads. We cannot allow political brinksmanship to lead us into an economic downturn that will disproportionately devastate our most vulnerable communities. A failure to lift the debt ceiling is not just an economic misstep, it is a failure of our collective moral responsibilities to all Americans, especially those who have historically been marginalized and disadvantaged. Black unemployment has been decreasing, and we have made strides towards a stronger, more equitable economy. Yet, if a recession were to happen due to our failure to raise the debt limit, the unemployment rate for Black Americans would rise faster than other demographics. This potential economic downturn threatens to wipe away the progress we've made and plunge us back into inequality and hardships. We must not allow our crisis of our own making to unravel the hard-earned progress of our people. We must raise the debt ceiling, not just because it is economically prudent, but because it is morally right. The dignity and welfare of our people, especially Black families who have far too long borne the brunt of economic hardship, hang in the balance. Let us not act out of fear, but out of hope, not out of division, but out of unity, not out of despair, but out of a belief in the promise of a more equitable and prosperous America for all. Madam Chair, Madam Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that all members have 5 legislative days to revise and extend their remarks. I yield my time back to the Honorable Sheila Surplus McCormick. Chair, pardon me.
The gentleman yields back. Under the Speaker's announced policy of January 9th, 2023, the gentlewoman from Florida, Ms. Shervillis McCormick, is recognized for the remainder of the hour as the designee of the Minority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I would like to yield to my colleague, the Honorable Representative Sheila Jackson Lee from Texas.
Let me thank the gentlelady from Florida, the gentleman from Illinois, the chairman of the Congressional Black Caucus for gathering us this evening. As I have said often, this is National Police Week. Today we honored those who have fallen in battle. That's why I think this debate on the debt ceiling is so crucial. And it is really important to have the American people recognize, and particularly those impacted in the African American community, as the Congressional Black Caucus rises today to specifically focus on the, if you will, economic infrastructure around a community that has, in its history in this country, have been deprived of economic wealth and has a wealth disparity between Anglo-Americans of 174,000 versus about 17,000, which leads us to understand how important to have a stable economic structure and for the country to pay its bills. So what is the debt ceiling? It is simply a procedure that has been designated as required for the nation to pay her bills. And every single family, independent working person, people who are in need, understand the need to pay bills. They understand the crisis of not paying bills. And so tonight, I just want to briefly discuss some of the challenges that will be faced by poor people, people of color, but also by our law enforcement. Tragically, we see circumstances where law enforcement on the front lines are in jeopardy. And as we see that, we are hearing about who's for the police and who's not for the police. Well, let me tell you what the Default on America bill that has been passed by my Republican friends will do. Frankly, that bill, which is what we're being held hostage for, want to move the Default on America bill before we do the right constitutional and definitively important act of raising the debt ceiling simply to pay the bills, simply to have America continue to be rolling on all wheels, simply to make sure that the military is paid, the massive numbers of law enforcement are paid. So with this bill, the Department of Justice budget will be cut by over $8 billion and threatens nearly 30,000 law enforcement jobs. The Default on America bill cuts nearly $1 billion in grants for state, local, and tribal law enforcement. That includes $150 million in the bill that I wrote, the Violence Against Women Act, and cuts to programs created by the Violence Against Women Act, which will especially harm women in Native communities. The bill cuts $1 billion in FBI funding that the agency uses to conduct background checks to solve violent crimes and combat terrorism. This is protecting individual family members, neighborhoods. By cutting these dollars, you are putting them in jeopardy. It eliminates $564 million in funding by the Drug Enforcement Agency, of which we're trying to stop fentanyl, which, by the way, has been brought in by really U.S. citizens through legal points of entry, and $384 million more from the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives. And we have seen what guns can do to law enforcement officers on the front line. And so I am stunned that we are where we are today. It has already been noted that, in fact, under the past administration, the Trump administration, if I might say, the debt ceiling was raised in a collegiate, responsible way by former Speaker Nancy Pelosi and the Democratic majority with the Trump administration to do what is right. The only thing that undermined a strong economy was the major deficit and debt that was created by the Trump tax cut. So here we are today, and why I ask, are we in essence being stumbling blocks? Instead of building for eternity, instead of working together, instead of finding a common ground, if we voted today to honor those who have fallen, we'll be voting to honor those who serve. We need to provide those funds to local, state, tribal governments to ensure that we have law enforcement, that the 800,000 police are not diminished, but they're enhanced with skills and training and funding that we're able to do in the federal government. But let me add to making poor people poorer. Food stamps and other nutritional programs will be cut by $14.7 billion in August and September. Pell Grants that cover higher education, which is the underpinnings of creating a new America, an America that is an opportunity for all of us. For low-income students, $8.8 billion. Educational programs designed to improve academic achievement for disadvantaged children, $2.5 billion by August and September. Early childhood development services for low-income children. These are lifelines for these children, be cut by $1.3 billion. All of these are very special and close to my heart, but job training programs for dislocated workers, youth employment services, which directly relate to young people having an opportunity in the summer, not being distracted, not being subjected to potential violence or loss of life because they're not being constructively engaged. $800 million will be cut. And so I am wondering, can we not work together as we did under the Democratic majority, working with a Republican president? Can't we work with a Democratic president and a Republican House and do what is right for the American people and ensure that the poor don't get poorer, and that people of color don't get thrown, not off the rails, but out the train and out the bus to be rolled over? We've got to be able to respond to our early histories, that all of us Many of us know what being poor is, but most of us know what it is to come up with not much, but because of education and opportunities, we are here in this Congress today. I see that in my constituents. I see that in the high schools I go to and the graduating classes that I went to over the weekend, where I saw the graduates who individually had stories where their original beginnings were not the best, but look at them graduating from a business degree in undergraduate school, graduating from law school, graduating with associate degrees, making life better, because part of that was funded by federal resources. We need to raise the debt ceiling, not by being held hostage, but by doing the responsible thing to do, which is to pay America's bill and to make sure that the American people who are pulling themselves up by their bootstraps have the shoes to be able to pull themselves up, and to make sure in this very special week that we honor police officers by providing those local police departments, state departments, tribal departments, the resources that they need, and particularly that we don't underfund the Violence Against Women Act. Some of the most violent calls are domestic violence calls by $150 million, and that we do not take money away from police officers, $8 billion, 30,000 law enforcement officers lost. How outrageous are we going to be? Raise the debt ceiling and do what is right for the American people and our children. I yield back.
Madam Speaker, you've heard from my distinguished colleagues about our topic today, which is raising the debt ceiling, all issues of great importance to the Congressional Black Caucus, our constituents, Congress, and all Americans tonight. With that, Madam Speaker, I yield back.
Over here. Under the Speaker's announced policy of January 9th, 2023, the gentleman from Florida, Mr. Rutherford, is recognized for 60 minutes as the designee of the Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I appreciate you yielding us this time as we have our bipartisan hour to really honor law enforcement officers all across America, talk about our Back the Blue. And this evening, as we begin, I'm joined by so many of my colleagues on both sides of the aisle who truly do support our law enforcement community, and we're here to celebrate their lives and also honor the deaths of many of these officers who have paid the ultimate sacrifice. Madam Speaker, as a career law enforcement officer, I know what our officers go through every day when they put on their uniforms, say goodbye to their families, and head out to do the important work of protecting their communities. They step into that breach between the good citizens that we're sworn to protect and that criminal element out there that would do them harm. Unfortunately, over the last few years, we've seen an uptick in violence specifically directed at law enforcement officers, especially in the form of ambush-style attacks. These violent attacks have been fueled by anti-police rhetoric, which has left our officers demoralized and delegitimized. In fact, according to the National Fraternal Order of Police, just this year, just in 23 so far, 135 officers have been shot, 15 of those killed by that gunfire. The number of officers shot in the line of duty is up 52% from this time 3 years ago. There have been, Madam Speaker, there have been 38 ambush-style attacks on police officers. 38. In these attacks, 43 police officers have been shot. This country cannot tolerate this violence. We must respond with action to prevent further attacks against our police officers. And I am grateful to my bipartisan colleagues who join me on this floor this evening to send a message that we have the backs of those officers who serve our communities. This Congress, I am proud to have reintroduced 3 bipartisan bills to further support our law enforcement officers. The Invest to Protect Act, which will make critical investments in small police departments with fewer than 200 officers, to help them with recruitment, with their retention, mental health support for their officers, and officer training. Also, the Protect and Serve Act, which creates enhanced federal penalties for individuals who deliberately target law enforcement officers in the line of duty. You target the police, Congress is going to target you. And then finally, the Helper Act, which will help our law enforcement officers and other first responders buy homes within the community that they serve. I'm going to continue to advocate for legislation that supports and equips our men and women in blue. And while we continue to work to support officers still on the job, we must also remember those who have laid down their lives in service to their communities. Last week, I had the honor of commemorating Florida's fallen officers, including 2 in my own district. Paul Matthew Patrick, an Atlantic Beach police officer whose watch ended on September 12th. He's a legacy. He died in 1932. Kobe Bryant Seckinger, the St. Johns County Sheriff's deputy whose watch ended on December 14th of 2020. Madam Speaker, it is vital that we never forget those who chose to walk out that door each day and face an unknown danger so that we don't have to. Ralph Waldo Emerson once said, "The purpose of life is not to be happy. It's to be useful. It's to be honorable, to be compassionate, to have it make some difference that you have lived and lived well." This week, we remember their sacrifice and use it as an inspiration to better support law enforcement officers across this nation. I pray each of us across America would live the rest of our lives worthy of their sacrifice. Now, with that, Madam Speaker, I'd like to yield to my good friend across the aisle, who is also co-chair of the Law Enforcement Caucus, Mr. Bill Pascrell from New Jersey. I thank you for being here, and he knows about service. He served in the Army, and he is now serving on Ways and Means Committee. Mr. Pascrell.
Madam Chair, Mr. Bacon, I associate myself with your words. Madam Speaker, I'm always proud to stand in support of our brave law enforcement, those officers who suit up every day. That is especially true during National Police Week. Our heroes do not just protect the safety of us and our neighbors. They defend the institutions that are fundamental to the well-being of our great society. Thousands of law enforcement officers and their families are in Washington to pay tribute to those who made the ultimate sacrifice. The names of 556 officers will be added to the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial. Among these fallen heroes are Matthew Vogel of the Hudson County Sheriff's Office in New Jersey and Robert Miller of the Clifton Police Department. Lieutenant Vogel, Sergeant Miller are missed tremendously in our North Jersey communities. I pray for the families, and I know my brother across the aisle feels the same way. As longtime co-chair of the Law Enforcement Caucus, I know the value of building trust between law enforcement and the communities that they serve. We cannot simply say we support law enforcement. Action is required. Last Congress, it was my honor to write 2 bills to fund the police that were signed into law, the TBI and Post-Traumatic Stress Disorder Law Enforcement Training Act and Protecting America's First Responders Act. The last 3 years have been difficult for all of us, especially for our brothers and sisters in uniform. They're there every day. This police week, let's do right by the law enforcement community itself. Let's pass bills that actually support the police, not partisan messaging, but action. I hope we would have considered 2 bipartisan bills of mine this police week. The first is H.R. 1322, the Law Enforcement Officers Equity Act, which would guarantee federal law enforcement officers receive their full retirement benefits. I think we all agree on that, hopefully. The second bill, H.R. 1719, honoring our Fallen Officers Act, which would ensure our first responders who die or become disabled due to occupational cancer receive benefits under the Public Safety Officers Benefits Program. These bills would actually make a difference for officers and their families. It is time we focus on those on the front lines. I hope we can pass them this Congress. And I might say this also. I would ask my brothers and sisters on both sides of the aisle to consider what I've been talking about for 25 years concerning weapons in our neighborhoods all over the country. The best thing we could do for the police department is to protect it. And I think that certain weapons are military and do not belong out in the street. I think we would be doing a great service to law enforcement, because we know not only do we need the personnel on the street, but we also need to protect them and give them the resources. This is my reason why, when I was in the state legislature in New Jersey many moons ago, we supported the first mass weapons bill and banning those. They have only one purpose, and that's on the military. So God bless our police, God bless America, and God bless the Congress folks who see beyond their nose and understand what's going out there in America. And we need to protect these guys and gals who go out every day to protect us. And with that, I yield back, Madam Chair and Mr. Bacon.
I thank the gentleman. And although we may not agree on everything, we do agree on the Law Enforcement Equity Act as a co-sponsor. I hope we can get that over the line. I think that would do a great service to our law enforcement communities out there. And now, Madam Speaker, I'd like to call on a dear friend who's from Nebraska's 2nd Congressional District. He's a retired U.S. Army, or U.S. Air Force, I'm sorry there, General. But he's a general who knows all about service above self. He's also, I should say, one of the original co-sponsors of the LEOSA reform bill, which is certainly going to help law enforcement officers all across America. So with that, I yield to my good friend, Representative Don Bacon.
I want to thank Representative Rutherford for leading tonight and being the expert on law enforcement issues. We came in together, and we look to you for doing the right things here to support our police. I appreciate Mr. Pasquale, too. We work a lot on traumatic brain injury, law enforcement issues. We find areas to agree on. And I know Mr. Gottheimer's getting up here soon, and he's also a partner in many of our policy things that we need to work together. But I rise today in honor of our police, the men and women who walk the streets of our communities to keep us safe, those who leave their families, do so every day to protect ours. In particular, I recognize the 556 officers who never returned to their families last year, including Saunders County Deputy Sheriff near my hometown. His name was Jeff Hermanson, who passed away. He was a K-9 handler, a volunteer firefighter. Deputy Hermanson is best remembered as a respected officer dedicated to his job. The best way we can honor those who give their lives and their families is to introduce legislation that better protects them on the job and prepares them for their profession and protects them in retirement. This Congress, I introduced H.R. 355, the Back to Blue Act of 2023, which makes it a federal crime to kill, attempt, or conspire to kill a federal judge, federal law enforcement officer, or federally funded police public safety officer. Criminals who cause harm or death to our officers should face punishment to the fullest extent of the law. You know, Mr. Rutherford earlier talked about all these ambushes. This is unacceptable. They must be held accountable. Our police are also facing radical attacks, and there are growing calls for them to be defunded. Let us be absolutely clear. We stand with our police. I'm an original co-sponsor of the Invest to Protect Act, which would direct the Department of Justice to establish a grant program to aid police departments with fewer than 200 law enforcement officers. I'm also on the EAGLE Act of 2023 to assist with the accreditation of small and mid-sized police departments. Unfortunately, there's an effort to eliminate the protections of qualified immunity for police officers. Let us be clear again. Qualified immunity is not a blank check allowing law enforcement officers to do what they want. It only protects them for personal liability if they have not violated clearly established policies. Without it, law enforcement officers would face a deluge of civil suits for simply doing their job. I'm a co-sponsor of the Qualified Immunity Act, which would codify qualified immunity protections for our law enforcement. We are seeing a rise of crime across the nation. In contrast, I want to brag on our Omaha Police Department that has worked with the community to lower crime rates. 15 years ago, the Omaha Police Department partnered with the Empowerment Network 360 to foster relationships with neighborhood organizations, nonprofits, and churches. Coupled with the solid support from the Omaha City Administration, they have the funding to do the work they have identified through these relationships that is vital to lowering gun violence, and they're now a model of success for reducing homicides and violent crime in the city. Recently mentioned in ABC, the Washington Post, the Wall Street Journal, we're one of the few large cities that have seen a drop in gun violence and crime. In 2022, there were 90 citywide shootings, down from 191 just 13 years ago. Even more impressive is that the homicide clearance rates are now at 87% in 2022. It shows our police are working hard and they're professionals. My family's been a victim of crime twice, and both times when I was deployed in the Middle East during my time in the Air Force. I want to take a time just to thank the law enforcement officers who were there at people's worst times in their life. In my case, I was gone both times when my victim was a crime. I was unable to help, but I know the police were there to support my wife and our kids, and we are grateful. I know this is a story of Americans from coast to coast, Hawaii and Alaska. So these legislative actions, in addition to work of our local law enforcement community advocates, can lead to safer communities and help ensure that our law enforcement officers are able to return home and to their loved ones. So tonight we say to our police, our law enforcement, we thank you, we love you, and we are grateful for what you do day in and day out. And with that, I yield.
Madam Chair, I'd like to introduce on the floor now, gentleman from New Jersey. It's my honor to introduce Mr. Gottheimer. I'm sorry?
The gentleman from Florida
Madam
controls
Speaker,
the time.
I yield to my good friend, Mr. Pascrell.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I introduce the Honorable Josh Gottheimer from the 5th District in New Jersey, and he's always had as a priority the brothers and sisters in blue. Mr. Gottheimer.
Thank you, Mr. Pascrell, and thank you for your leadership in the caucus, supporting law enforcement, and always being there for those in New Jersey. Very grateful. Madam Speaker, thank you very much. Mr. Rutherford, thank you so much for organizing this evening and for all you do and have done in your career for law enforcement, your service, which continues today. We're incredibly grateful for you, and I'm grateful for our friendship, as well as Mr. Bacon, who just spoke so artfully, who's vice chair of the Problem Solvers Caucus and also does a phenomenal job. Thank you both very much. I rise today to recognize National Police Week and to express my deep and unwavering support for the sacrifices our law enforcement officers make to keep our families and our communities safe. Every day, law enforcement officers put on a bulletproof vest, kiss their loved ones goodbye, and then put their lives on the line to look out for us. That's why we must always get the backs of those who have ours. I'm very proud to co-lead the bipartisan resolution, which was just passed to recognize National Police Week and memorialize officers tragically killed in the line of duty. This week, as we are here with so many others recognizing Police Week, Americans across our great nation honor and remember the more than 26,000 law enforcement officers who have sacrificed their lives to protect our great country. We will always honor their memory. We must do all we can to support law enforcement. That's why I'm honored to be leading bipartisan, bicameral legislation with my good friend and retired sheriff, Congressman Rutherford, called the Invest to Protect Act. Our bipartisan legislation, as he referred to, is also being co-led by the chairman of the Congressional Black Caucus, Congressman Stephen Horsford, and retired NYPD detective, Congressman Anthony D'Esposito. Our bipartisan, bicameral bill will make critical investments in law enforcement, especially in small departments, in training and recruitment and retention of officers, and in mental health, to protect our officers, our families, and our communities. The Invest to Protect Act was developed through many conversations with Republicans and Democrats in both chambers, and with a broad spectrum of stakeholders. I'm proud the bipartisan legislation has been endorsed by key law enforcement organizations, including the National Association of Police Organizations, the Fraternal Order of Police, the New Jersey FOP, the New Jersey State PBA, the National Organization of Black Law Enforcement Executives, the National Troopers Coalition, the New Jersey State Troopers Fraternal Association, the Port Authority PBA, Peace Officers Research Association of California, the State Troopers Non-Commissioned Officers Association, the National Sheriff's Association, the Sergeants Benevolent Association, the National Tactical Officers Coalition, and the Federal Law Enforcement Officers Association. It's worth pointing out these organizations because it shows the broad support in our country to support law enforcement and to make sure we take care of those who take care of us. We've got identical companion legislation in the Senate, led by Senator Chuck Grassley of Iowa and Senator Catherine Cortez Masto of Nevada. We worked with the Leadership Conference on Civil Rights and others across the spectrum. Because the point with Sheriff Rutherford and I realized, and so many others who supported this legislation and are supporting it now, is you cannot cut or defund your way to safer communities and better police departments. Instead, you need to invest to protect. That's the only way we strengthen our departments and make them even better. We have to stand by those. This idea that you'd cut the way to the bone as the answer is absurd, and it makes our communities weaker. We need to invest in them, and I'm so grateful for this across-the-aisle support to get the backs of those who risk their lives every day to protect us, not just on this bill, but on so many other important pieces of legislation that we'll be considering this week, Police Week. Thank you again, and I yield back my time.
Thank you, and I want to thank the gentleman for you're one of the hardest workers across the aisle I know, coming with us and joining on law enforcement issues, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate your friendship. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Sheriff. Thank you so much.
And now, Madam Speaker, I'd like to introduce a gentleman who also knows about service above self, and that is Representative Bill Johnson of Ohio's 6th Congressional District. He is a retired United States Air Force Lieutenant Colonel. And we thank you for your service, and Representative Johnson.
I thank my colleague for yielding to me. I really do. Service is something that's in my blood, and I can tell you that as I rise today in support of the men and women who wear the blue as we recognize National Police Week, I don't think we can say enough about their sacrifices. You know, all across America, police officers have an increasingly difficult and thankless job today. They see, literally, the worst of humanity day in and day out, putting their lives on the line while serving to protect all of us, really for very modest pay. They head towards the danger. They run into it rather than away from it. And they're constantly put in unpredictable, chaotic, and threatening positions in order to keep our community safe. Very few professions demand the willingness to sacrifice one's own life in order to protect the safety and security of others. But that's exactly what our men and women in blue willingly sign up to do. Just last year, 224 police officers were killed in the line of duty. 224. Never, as I was growing up in this great country, did I think I would see a number like that. They've been shot, stabbed, and run over by the lawless. And their murders don't receive nearly the media coverage that they should. The whole nation should be outraged by what we see. So to the men and women who wear the blue, on behalf of those I represent, thank you. Thank you for choosing to serve and to protect. And importantly, thank you to your families who sacrifice so much and can never be sure if that pre-shift hug and kiss might very well be their last. God bless each and every man and woman in blue for what they do. Thank you so much on behalf of a grateful nation. Thank you.
Thank you, Billy. Those are true words from the heart. Thank you. And Madam Speaker, I'd like to now yield to Mr. Pascrell again for an introduction.
Thank you. Madam Speaker, I'd like to introduce a dynamic young lady from California, Congresswoman Norma Torres. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. As the mother of a Pomona police officer and former 911 dispatcher, I rise today to commemorate National Police Week. This week, we celebrate the heroes who don't make the headlines. I know from my son and other officers how much our society expects from the law enforcement community. We expect these brave men and women to put themselves in harm's way and even endanger their own lives to keep us safe. Our police officers are protectors, peacekeepers, and public servants, and I am proud to recognize them for what they do. Law enforcement is a demanding and often thankless calling, and that's why I will always fight to give our public safety professionals the resources they need to carry out their duties. As a 911 dispatcher for over 17 years, I answered calls from people in danger and helped make sure that the Los Angeles police officers were in the right place at the right time with the right support they needed to keep the city safe. Anyone calling for budget cuts to law enforcement, including our heroic Capitol Police, has clearly never heard the calls that I have. As a member of the Appropriations Committee, I have repeatedly called for and secured crucial funding for law enforcement and public safety in California's 35th Congressional District and across our country. I have also introduced the 911 Saves Act, which gives our 911 dispatchers the recognition they deserve by officially classifying them as emergency responders. Law enforcement personnel must have the resources and support that they need to appropriately carry out their duties. I will always fight to ensure that they can uphold their sacred promise to protect and serve our communities. And with that, I yield back the rest of my time.
I thank the gentlelady for the comments tonight, and I know as a law enforcement officer that our 911 dispatchers are, so overlooked, I think, by our communities and what you all do and what you do for those men and women out there on the street. So I want to say thank you for your service as well.
Thank you for supporting the 911 Saves Act over the years. I appreciate
Absolutely.
you.
Thank you. And now, Madam Speaker, it's my pleasure to introduce another law enforcement officer. Spent 23 years of his life serving the Duluth, Minnesota Police Department. Representative Pete Stauber, he's also an original co-sponsor of the Protect and Serve Act. Representative Stauber.
Well, thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Sheriff Rutherford, thank you for putting on this hour. You served with honor, and I want to thank you for continuing to lead and fighting for law enforcement in our conference. I appreciate you very much. I rise today to honor the many law enforcement officers who have made the ultimate sacrifice for our communities. Every year, men and women from across this country decide to serve on a police force. They do it because they have a unique and noble desire to protect their family, friends, and their communities. They have a willingness to put the safety of others before themselves. They believe in law and order and that justice will prevail against evil. These are good and honorable and noble people, and we are lucky to have them. Every day, these men and women put on their uniform, kiss their families goodbye, and head to work without certainty they will return home that night. If you ask the spouse of any law enforcement officer, what is the greatest sound in the world? And they'll tell you when their loved one takes the Velcro from the bullet-resistant vest in the morning after duty, and it scratches like Velcro does, and it wakes them up. They know their loved one is home from a night of hard work. They know their loved one arrived home alive. Unfortunately, many never have heard that sound. As of this April, 99 officers have been shot in the line of duty this year, and 10 have given their life. It is clear the dangers of the job are huge, but they are an acceptable part of this profession. What disgusts me, however, is the 27 ambush-style attacks. Law enforcement officers are intentionally being targeted and attacked in the streets simply because they wear the uniform and serve their communities. This is unacceptable and must stop. In this chamber, we must lead by example. We must respect the rule of law. We must thank and stand with our law enforcement officers. We must call on others to do so as well. Only then will we truly honor the memory of those we have lost. As a police officer for 23 years, it is my privilege to speak about the law enforcement profession and the men and women who wear the blue and the brown. They are some of the greatest people I have ever known, and I will use my time in Congress to honor them the best I can. And we must not forget the family members of the men and women who serve, the Luke Delanos that are out there, the children of the family members that worry about mom or dad or brother and sister. We must also know that they're concerned that their loved one comes home alive at the end of their shift. My time in uniform may be over, but my watch will never end. God bless the men and women in the blue and brown and their families, and I yield back.
Amen to that. Good job. And I thank you for your service. And Mr. Pascrell, you have no more speakers, correct? Okay. Then I would like to call upon my good friend from the state of Wisconsin, Representative Glenn Grothman, who has had a life of service himself in the state legislature at all levels. So with that, thank you, Representative, for being here.
Well, we're here to commemorate another Police Week, and I think the average American never has an opportunity to see what the average policeman goes through and the risks that they take. Fortunately, as a congressman, and as you mentioned before that, a state legislator, I had an opportunity to try to do a couple ride-alongs a year with local police departments and local sheriff's departments. And I think until you spend time with the law enforcement, you can't realize the risks that they go through routinely and without complaining. Whether it's a domestic situation where you're going up to a door, not knowing if one of these people is armed, not knowing what you're going to confront, but having to knock on that door and go in there anyway. Whether it's doing a routine traffic stop, because if you're in a squad car, no traffic stop seems routine. You have no idea whether that person is armed, whether that car is going to take off, what's going to happen. But every night, the average law enforcement officer has to, I would estimate, 3 or 4 times get involved, because it's his job, in the unknown, not knowing who is the other person in that car, who is the person behind that door. So I encourage my colleagues all to take advantage of their position, do a ride along, get to know a little bit more about these police, so you not only respect what they're doing, but know how incredibly professional they are. What a great job that they do, and you will quickly realize that the few naysayers in this building who run down the police, it's not consistent with the statistics at all. And in fact, there are few occupations I would think as noble and respectful, and something that you must feel as good about yourself accomplishing as what a policeman does every night. And I will make another comment. It's good to spend a shift with dispatch as well, because you're going to find out something about people who do a very good job there as well. But thank you for leaving me with a minute.
I thank the gentleman. Thank you very much. And now, Madam Speaker, I'd like to call on my good friend from New Jersey, Mr. Pascrell, for a close.
I have to say tonight, Madam Speaker, Mr. Bacon, that I associate myself with all the words that were spoken on both sides of the aisle tonight. I'm sure you do too. So we have the main job in front of us, I believe, is to protect our police officers. And I think that we can resolve differences along those lines if we sit and talk with each other. There's nothing more important than protecting our citizens. I think there's agreement on that. How we do it, well, that's always going to be controversial. But I believe that this is one issue, particularly what's happened over the last couple of years, that makes us either add or subtract from the way we thought about it before. So thank you, my co-chair. And we got tough decisions to make in the future, but we'll make them, like we always have. And thank you for all of your work. Thank you.
Thank you. I really do appreciate the work that we've been able to do on the Law Enforcement Caucus, serving together as co-chairs, and I look forward to many more opportunities to come together and work. Thank you for making this bipartisan hour, recognizing our law enforcement officers so very special. Thank you very much. And Madam Speaker, I will close with this. As a law enforcement officer, my fundamental duty is to serve mankind, to safeguard lives and property, to protect the innocent against deception, the weak against oppression, and the peaceful against violence and disorder, and to respect the constitutional rights of all men to liberty, equality, and justice. That is the opening of the Law Enforcement Officers' Code of Ethics. If you go to the Law Enforcement Memorial, every officer whose name is etched on those walls lived by and died for that code. We remember them today, and this whole week is about promises made and promises kept. We promised them and their families that they would never be forgotten. This week, we will keep that promise. I pray that we keep that promise every day, the rest of our lives, And as I said earlier, I only pray that we can all live the rest of our lives worthy of their sacrifice. And with that, Madam Speaker, I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. Does the gentleman have a motion?
Yeah, I ask unanimous consent that all members may have 5 legislative days to revise and extend their remarks.
Without objection. Does the gentleman have a motion to adjourn?
I do, Madam Speaker. I move that the House do now adjourn.
The question is on the motion to adjourn. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The motion is adopted. Accordingly, the House stands adjourned until 10 a.m. tomorrow for morning hour debate.